Hey Hubert, we recently produced a short video that explained the definition of our Industrial Agile Framework that we deploy at Big Iron Square. We discussed producing another short video that explains the core concepts built into the Industrial Agile Framework. So why don't you get us started?
Okay, let me start with the concept about team and having the whole team in the room when it matters. That is to say, the right people from each of those steps in that process to go from concept to cash, from idea to product coming out of the manufacturing plant. When we have the right people in, for example, an inspection, we produce a bit of a product and we inspect, and we have a services person or supply chain person in the room to do the inspection. They discover early what's missing or what could be better or what's wrong. And now it's easier and quicker to fix.
It's a different concept, right? Because many organizations view something like manufacturing as a completely separate area from maybe our designers.
Oh yes, right.
And when we look at the front and the back, if you will, the sequential process thinking tends to come into play.
Right, and then we get handoffs. Oh, it's now their problem. No, the whole team owns that delivery from very first idea through design, through testing, through supply chain and acquiring parts, and do that as early as possible to discover issues as early as possible and fix them.
Now you use the term from concept to cash. We're really talking about the entire value stream. So let's look at that as our second main concept. How do we ensure that we have all of the right people in those evaluations that are taking place? Well, development through manufacturing, what we're really talking about here is that the handoff approach, well, that's history. We don't work like that anymore. We now work in an integrated fashion. So we don't have our development team passing off to manufacturing and walking away. It's much more of an integrated approach where the developers and all those other contributors, like design, supply chain, manufacturing, those that you mentioned, they're all integrated together so that we don't have these surprises at the end, which we normally see, right? When there's sequential dependencies with handoffs, we're really pushing our risk all the way to the back, and we're extending the timeline. And then we come to the point at the end where we find problems and it's too late to do anything about them.
Yes, that's right. And besides inspecting late and finding problems late, we can overlap a lot of work. We can produce work instructions, assembly instructions, while we are designing and casing, like that remote control that we had. We can start purchasing, acquiring equipment for manufacturing, or we send out early orders for parts the moment that we have decided on certain chipsets or whatever is needed in that remote control. So it's not only that we don't find problems late when they're harder to fix, it's also an integrating of those steps, making the duration of the whole sequence a whole lot shorter.
Yeah. And when we discuss this with organizations, well, next question they have is, okay, but how do we do that? How can we account for all those the contributors, the right contributors coming together? This brings us to our third core concept, which has to do with the expectation of continuous delivery. That we're not going to wait 3 years, 5 years, 7 years to get something to inspect and adapt. We're going to want something delivered in a fairly short increment of delivery time, so we can learn.
Right, and short as in think weeks. Think weeks to produce something that's inspectable, that gives feedback, that on one hand discovers those issues early, like we already explained, and gives the right people the opportunity to influence, to ask, and that can be as specific as a finance person looking at the whole setup and an early bill of materials and saying, we're going to have a really high-end price for that remote control. Is that what we want? If the answer is no, we want a very low-cost remote control, then we're early in the process, we can change materials used, etc., and continuous delivery and continuous inspection and continuous adaptation. That's the motto of the framework.
And this could be quite varied from organization to organization, from product to product. Some organizations have heavy government oversight. Some organizations have extremely intense testing that they have to put their products through. Right? But by having everybody there together, focusing on delivering in a continuous manner, it increases the odds that they're going to be able to figure this out.
Right.
Well, I think that covers the core concepts of the Industrial Agile Framework. We'll have some more videos where we dive deeper.